CTE Pro 1 Truth Series, Video 8. We're going to take a look at a single alignment for 15 outside. We're going to look at some various CTE Pro 1 approaches for applying the same CTE. We're going to take a look at Pro 1, Basic CTE, Disguised Pivoting, and Half Ball Pivoting. Let's take a look at the alignment that we're going to have for 15 outside. First of all, I'm on a 4.5 by 9 table and I have a setup tool. It would be handy if you could develop one or would develop one for your 2x1 table, especially if you're going to get my book. From center diamond to center diamond here, it's 12.5 inches. I have some division lines on my setup tool for 1/6, 1/5, 1/4, 1/3, and 1/2. My cue ball for this shot is set up a 1/2 diamond out in front of the nose of the cushion, directly in front of this diamond. So that's 6.25 inches. The object ball is placed a 1/2 diamond to the right of this diamond, 6.25 inches, and the object ball is 1 cube of chalk away from the rail. Precision setups are very important when you're setting up these shots. Okay, so this is a 15 outside alignment. But before we move along, I think we need to really stop and revisit why we're really here. 3 aim lines make all shots. In this case, right edge to object ball C solves the shot. Hal Hool knew that. Hal Hool was very crafty. He was very smart about the inner workings of one's visual intelligence. Hal knew that if a player would align correctly from right cue ball edge to object ball C, then your visual intelligence would immediately give you the one and only shot line just like that. But when he said right edge to C, for example, solves this shot, Hal knew there were more lines involved. I found some of his writings that I include in my book where there's more than one line involved. He knew that the alignment had to be from parallax. He knew that there was a specific sight line for the 15. Hal knew that from the sight line, the sight line could be changed by the stepping process. He didn't call it that, but he was aware of that. So it is your job, it's your work to engage in for putting these lines together for the various perceptions, whether 15, 30, 45, or 60. You have to put the lines together, and your goal is essentially to be automatic with just seeing an aim line and boom, the rest of it falls into place. So when Hal said 3 aim lines solve all shots, there was a lot of criticism directed towards that claim. Well, Hal knew that once an aim line is seen correctly, then the rest of it falls into place. But in order for one to really sink their teeth into centered edge aiming, just having faith in it is not enough. You have to understand it. So that's what this Truth Series, and that's what my book does so beautifully. It gives you all the building blocks to where you can stand behind the shot at ball address, see the aim line, and there's the solution to the shot. and it happens faster than feel. So for this shot right here, it's a 15 outside, and once I see the aim line, there's the solution to the shot, my missile. So Hal understood how vision works. I understand how vision works for solving shot lines, objective shot lines. Hence, that's why you have the Truth Series and my book. Now, this is a 15 outside. I guess the first thing we should understand is, why is this alignment a 15 outside? It's the sight line that is paramount for deciding, for helping you to decide, determine whether you need an outside pivot or an inside pivot. So when I line up with my 15-degree perception, I look down the sight line and I just simply ask myself, if I were to shoot down that sight line, would the object ball track thick to the pocket or thin to the pocket? In this case, the object ball would track thin to the pocket. Any thin relationship to the pocket from the cue ball object ball relationship requires an outside pivot. And for the case of Pro 1, we would call that a outside left visual sweep. So we're going to take a look at Pro 1 first for our application of CTE. Pro 1 is a very, very friendly method for applying CTE. Many of you are in and out of doing this already. Probably depends on whether you're in the zone or not, but I can assure you that when you're in a zone and you're probably a little bit offset to center, you're picking up, if you don't know what you're doing, at least subconsciously, the right cue ball edge to object ball C. Hal once stated that the top 200 players in the world used this system. Hal knew that professional players were offsetting to center, and the only place that an offset away from center can look right is when the right edge of the cue ball for this shot is aligned to C. There's no other place that it can look correctly from an offset. So when it looks correct, you're at the parallax position and you have your center cue ball to SP 15, the left side of the object ball. So in order to get to where you can automatically aim right cue ball edge to C, you have to verify that you're in the correct parallax position. You have to know that you're in the right sight line position. But your goal is to become automatic. Just see the aim line and sweep right into the sight line. Now, the beauty of Pro 1 is that it's sort of hybrid in nature. You use parallax viewing while you're standing. In other words, this is a right cut, so my nose is going to turn to the right. And I'm going to use parallax vision while I'm standing at ball address. But here's the real beauty of it. When I fall into full stance, my head is going to unangle for using my personal strongest line of sight. So at ball address for Pro 1, it's parallax. For full stance, it's conventional. Okay, let's take a look at how to line up. Let's take a look at the specifics. You want to stand behind the aim line. Not directly behind the aim line, as if you've got the center of your body behind the aim line. You want to stand behind the aim line in such a way that you can angle your head to the right for seeing along the sight line. I'll say that again. Stand behind the aim line in such a way that you can angle your head to the right for seeing along the sight line. You'll be in the parallax position. Now keep in mind, if I were to shoot down the sight line, this ball is going to track thin to the pocket. So I'm going to have to step the cue ball in relation to the object ball. How do I do that? I look at the left side of the cue ball for changing the center. When I look at the left side of the cue ball, the outermost left side of the cue ball, I'll create a new center. That new center is the solution to the shot, the missile, the shot line. Now, this happens automatically. When you see right edge to see, subconsciously your visual intelligence is at work already looking at the left side of the cue ball so that it steps naturally for you. Who will move this? Now, let's talk about how I get to that shot line. So there's my visual. Now, there's really two parts to a Pro 1 visual sweep. You got the sweep, the visual sweep, and then you have the physical sweep. The physical sweep is just my body going into a left rotation. It's a very defined, distinct left rotation for this shot. As a right-handed player, my cue's always going to come in from left to right. Now look at my cue. I have my cue pushed outward. Now, I'm just going to pull my cue in this way. So, very distinct, very distinct. Left, physical. That would be a physical sweep. But the visual sweep that occurs because of what I'm specifically doing with my vision. When I'm seeing this 15-degree perception, my right eye is dominant for the aim line. My left eye is dominant for the sight line. My mid-face vision center is dominant for the parallax line. My left eye is dominant for not only seeing the sight line, but for stepping the cue ball. So, for my favorite personal line of sight that I like to use if I'm aiming conventionally, that's my right eye. Or close, it just slightly favors my right eye. But it's my left eye that's dominant for the sight line and for the stepping. So the visual sweep can be defined as that movement visually that occurs from my left eye as being dominant for the sighting and stepping, sweeping over to my right eye for my conventional alignment. That's the visual sweep. Okay, so here we go. There's my perception. My left eye is dominant for the sight line and for the stepping. But I'm going to sweep right into an alignment that just ever so slightly favors my right eye. Just ever so slightly. You're getting the intricacies, the details of CTE that have never been revealed before. This is the only place that you're going to get the correct information, the real information. And if you like what's here, you're going to love what's in my book. Because I don't halfway do anything. I have not halfway done this Truth series, and I spent almost 6 years on my book. So you can rest assured that I did not halfway do my book. I don't do things halfway. When I started out working on this system 6 years or 15, 16 years ago, I set out to solve it. I didn't set out to halfway do something. I set out to solve it. And that's exactly what happens within my Truth series. That's how it's presented, and that's exactly what you're going to find in my book. Now, we're going to continue to build on Pro 1 over the next several videos. So we're going to be moving on here shortly. But here is your goal for Pro 1. You want to just be able to step up to a shot and know that it's a outside 15, right edge to C. And the rest of it just falls in place and you sweep right into the shot line. It happens that quick. So essentially, you're just consciously aware of right edge to C, and then it's almost like magic. The shot line is revealed for you because from parallax, as a result of being aligned to the sight line, the stepping process happens automatically. There it is. Now, there's no target on the object ball. The target is just center cue ball, the step center. So once I have right edge to C, boom, there's my line. There's my step center. So I just go right down, the step center is my target. There's no target on the object ball. So once I pick up the aim line, then the only thing that I'm really working with after that is the step center. Yeah, there's a relational line to the object ball, but there is no target on the object ball. So that's a look at Pro 1. That's your first real look at Pro 1, but there will be other looks. Let's take a look at basic CTE. That's the manual version. That would be the version of where you're lifting up the hood and you're looking under the hood to see what all's happening. So manual CTE gives you a chance to really get down to the nitty-gritty of what's really going on with the process. Basic CTE engages a manual pivot. A difference between basic CTE and Pro 1 right off the bat is that Pro 1 has you doing parallax vision here, but conventional vision here. With basic CTE, it's parallax vision here, and it's parallax vision here. And that's where the odd stuff really comes in. Learning to use parallax vision in full stance. Because when you're using parallax vision while you're standing, that is no big deal at all. Many of you are already doing it. Professional players are already doing it. Tyler Steyer will tell you that they're all doing it. They don't even have to know they're doing it. That's just a process of shooting a lot of shots. That's where you're going to end up. Hal Houle knew that when he said all the instructors are teaching the game the wrong way, you know, put your nose behind center and see a contact point, which you can't see, or put your nose behind center and see a ghost ball, which you can't see, or to see a fraction, which you can't see. Hal Houle knew that was wrong. Even if on paper it can work, and even if you can get it to work up here, it's wrong, because look at what's happening across the board with professional players. That's not what they do. That's what many people that teach the game think they do, but they're wrong in thinking that. They're seeing their alignments from from an offset. And what is happening, and I didn't mention it in Pro 1, but I will. I can mention it now. What's happening in Pro 1 is at ball address goes deeper than just seeing edge to see in those lines. There's a gearing process that's taking place in order to get the 360 ticks on the cue ball matched up with the 360 ticks on the object ball. So when you look under the hood, and I'm standing right here like this cue ball is gearing this way, and the object ball is gearing this way for aligning a specific tick to a specific tick here, and then your center cue ball tick is specifically aligned to a specific tick for SP15. In other words, you've got this ball geared this way, this ball geared this way for a perfect match. So you're not just seeing lines. When you get down there underneath the hood, the gearing process is occurring. That's what professional players are doing. They're not using ghost ball, contact points and fractions. They're gearing the balls. The balls are being geared. So, for basic CTE, you start off at parallax. Now, for basic CTE, here's another tremendous difference between basic CTE and the other approaches. So we just talked about Pro 1. At Pro 1, you step the cue ball while you're standing. You have to step it while you're standing because you're at parallax. In basic CTE, you're going to step the cue ball when you're in full stance. So you're going to, basic CTE is a step further into the world of centered edge aiming because it facilitates, fosters your ability. It allows you to grow to the extent that you can eventually learn to use your vision in parallax during full stance. So for Pro 1, when I fall into full stance, my head unangles. For basic CTE, when I fall into full stance, there's actually a coordinated coiling of my head a little bit further to the right that I refer to sometimes as poking your head out. Hal Hood used to tell Dave Siegel, poke your head out. So when you're going into full stance, there is a coordinated coiling of the vision that occurs in order to maintain the parallax viewing position in the sight line. Hal Hood said, see the perfect perception, pivot to center, and whack it. That's what he told me. I asked him, I said, what do you see when you're down on the ball? He said, I see the perfect perception, now pivot to center. Well, he left one thing out. You have to step the cue ball. You see the perfect perception, then you step the cue ball, and then you pivot to that step to center. So you do see the perfect perception and pivot to center, but that center needs to be defined. It's the stepped center that you pivot to. So here we go, basic CTE. Aim line, sight line from parallax. I am not going to step the cue ball. I'm going to guide down by way of the sight line. I'm going to align my cue, my bridge V, to be 1/2 tip to the outside of the sight line. So here we go. I'm going to guide down by way of the sight line. 1/2 tip here. Now there's my sight line. There's the perfect perception. Now if you rewind this and look at it, you'll see that I was moving my bridge V around. Do you know what was happening when I was moving my bridge V around? I was already stepping the cue ball, looking at the left side of the cue ball, so that I could place my bridge V on the extended step line back this way, so that when I pivot, I'm on the no imagination shot line. So it doesn't matter whether I have a skinny shaft or whether I have a fat shaft. When you look under the hood, you're going to see that one's bridge V follows one's vision. In this case, my left eye is dominant for seeing the sight line and stepping. So my bridge V, my physical intelligence, is following my vision in the form of taking my bridge V and placing it so that it's on the step center line. You see, you're getting down to the nitty-gritty of how CTE really works. Many have said that it was impossible for me to explain it. But one of my good qualities is stick-to-itiveness. I stuck with it until I figured it out. Okay, there's my 15-degree perception. I'm going to go down the sight line. I'm going to place my bridge V and cue about a half a tip away from the sight line. And you know the advantage of getting your tip to the left of the sight line is you're getting this end of the cue out of the way, in this case to the left, where your eyes can see the sight line and the step center. You see, you're working with two centers. If you have your cue interfering with your vision at center cue ball, you're not going to learn to use your vision correctly. So the reason that you have your cue out of the way, it's not that you have to have it out of the way, but in order to learn how to use your vision, you don't want your cue in the way. Because when you progress into disguised pivoting, for example, you don't have to pivot your cue. You just take your cue right to the step center. Because you've learned to do that because of your work with basic CTE. So, okay, let's walk through that again. There's my perfect perception. I'm at parallax. As I go down, my head's going to poke just a little bit more. Now, there's the perfect perception. Now, there's the step center. I look at the left side of the cue ball. I peek at the outermost left edge of that left side of the cue ball. I see the step center in relation to the object ball. My bridge V is on that line, so that now when I pivot to center, I'm on the step center. This is a little bit challenging to do while talking my way through it, but I've done it so many times. It's hopefully it's not too rough looking, but when you get conscious about all this, it's a little bit cumbersome at times, but I must say that going through this and teaching this just reinforces the depths of this system visually. It's a very deep system. It's a professional system. There's no other system that will allow you to objectively align at ball address and then give you 100% right edge to see, and then 100% I'm on a step center that stalls the shot, not only to the pocket, but as a very slight overcut to center pocket, which is desirable. So this is a professional aiming system. You should aspire to know everything about it. As a player, as an instructor, you should aspire to put all the building blocks together, because it is such a gift. Center to edge aiming is such a gift. One that you don't want to miss out on. But that's up to you. all I can do is hopefully allow my enthusiasm and passion to come through so that it might infect a lot of you, because it's absolutely beautiful. When you stand at ball address and you rotate 360 ticks this way and 360 ticks that way, and you get a perfect marriage between the cue ball and the object ball in such a way that it gives you the shot line. Something that was never supposed to be. It was never supposed to be that you could take a cue ball and an object ball and set it up as a cut shot and then know the exact solution to the shot down to the very tick. One tick on this ball for solving the shot. One tick on this ball solves the shot. There's no target on the object ball. So if I'm passionate and enthusiastic about what I'm doing, it's because I am. I'd like to see you get it. Basic CTE. So it doesn't really matter if my offset with my tip is half a tip, a quarter tip, a full tip. Because when you get under the hood, what are you going to see? You're going to see that what's critical is bridge V placement, because your body is going to follow your eyes in the form of placing your bridge V on the nissel. Now, when I'm going in for this sight line for acquiring the perfect perception, when I see the sight line, what does that do? When I see the sight line from parallax and it's perfect, that aims up the aim line. The aim line is perfect. Now, I've seen the perfect perception, so I look at the left side of the cue ball and step it so I have a new center from left to right. Now, it is okay to look directly at your bridge V when you first start learning this, because you have to get it in line with the step center. Now, as you move along, your vision as far as being directed towards your bridge V will just be peripherally. And I'm to the point now that I don't even notice my vision picking up my bridge V. We do have a physical intelligence at work for all this, as well as a visual intelligence. So, there's the perfect perception. There's the step center. My V's on that center. Pivot to center from left to right. And that's how basic CTE works. Let's take a look at disguised pivoting. You know, all of this work that I've done has been a labor of love, but I would be lying to you if I didn't say it was not fun. It's been fun. It's been a labor, all right, but I've loved it, and there's been a lot of fun behind it. I couldn't have gotten through it if I didn't just love what I'm doing. Okay, we're going to take a look at disguised pivoting. If you're doing a lot of basic CTE, let's say you start off using Pro 1, which is typical. You start off becoming fairly proficient at Pro 1, and what would be ideal is you work with basic CTE on the side during your practice time. So as you're logging some hours with basic CTE and getting used to having your vision at parallax during full stance, then one day you'll start sweeping right into the nissel, and that would be disguised pivoting. So here's a real big difference between basic CTE and disguised pivoting. In basic CTE, when I go into full stance based on the sight line, I see the sight line first and then the nissel. Sight line and then the nissel. In disguised pivoting, I'm just going directly to the nissel, and the sight line, the perception, is in the background. You know, I could make a case that consciously about all I'm doing is using the center of the cue ball, the step center. The sight line is in the background. Now, let's keep in mind, when I'm using disguised pivoting here, I'm going to start off foundationally from right cue ball edge to object ball C. It all happens automatically at this stage. The parallax, the sight line, the stepping. So I'm just going to sweep right to the step center. I've already identified the step center, just like in Pro 1. So I'm just going to coil my head further as I go down, right to the stepped center. So what is it that I notice on the object ball? Well, when you look under the hood, you'll discover, you'll find, you'll come to know, just like me, that that object ball has been rotated. So that means the sight point for the SP15 is rotated into the correct place. So when I sweep into this shot, I can notice that one tick on this object ball is in the correct place. That tells me that the whole perception's correct. Now if I want to, and I allude to this in my book, if I want to, I can sweep right into this shot to the step center and glance over at the outer edge of the object ball. It's rotated, it's in the correct place. I can just pick up the perception of the object ball as a whole. The whole object ball has been turned so that it has the rotational ticks in the correct place. For the outer edge, for the SP15, for the parallax line, and even for the aim line, object ball aim point tick. All that's in the correct place. So, I mentioned in a previous video that you can use center and edge. Well, this framework never goes away. It's always there. But if I wanted to just use center and edge, I just go to my step center and look at the outer edge of the object ball. All the rotational ticks are in place, so I can look at SP15 or the outer edge of the cue ball. One thing that's really amped up with me quite a bit, even just here lately over the last few months, is that for disguised pivoting, I've become keenly more aware of the gearing process that takes place. So once I start up here foundationally with my aim line, and everything else is really in place too, when I go down, I just focus a little bit more on the gearing that happens between the inside of the cue ball and the outside of the cue ball. So I'll notice at times that the outer tick on the object ball has rotated to the correct position. So that means the gearing has stopped, and when I see that tick and I put the brakes on with my gearing, that means everything is correct. And I'm just going to the step center. So when I go down here for disguised pivoting, it's inside the cue ball, outside half of the object ball. Everything's rotated correctly. I'm on the step center based on the outermost edge for this side right here, and I'm just at that point just ready to stroke right through the center of the cue ball. I do want to back up, and for basic CTE in full stance, my final arm alignment will be in. For disguised pivoting, when I'm in my final position, my arm is going to be in the in position. So when I say in position, inward in relation to near to my body. You'll see when we get into the next video that the arm can be in the, or will be in the outward position. So that's one of the building blocks that you have to put together, awareness-wise. So disguised pivoting is you're sort of full steam ahead at this point with parallax vision here and parallax vision here. It's just automatic, and it can only happen as a result of putting the building blocks together. Aim lines, parallax lines, sight lines, understanding gearing, rotational ticks, just putting it all together. Okay. Let's take a look at half ball pivoting. Half ball pivoting is really just basic CTE. There's a couple of really good ways to use half ball pivoting. First of all, since basic CTE has a half tip pivot from left to right, and half ball pivoting would have a half ball pivot from left to right, it's essentially the same. The half ball pivot, the half tip pivot is the same because the common denominator between the two is bridge V placement. So it doesn't matter where your cue is angled out away from center. An advantage is for a half ball pivot is you can see the cue ball better. I mean, you've got your cue completely out of the way. Another advantage, and you'll see this in the next video, is that all of your half ball pivoting as a right-handed player will come from left to right. So there's a matter of consistency, efficiency there that can be factored in to the process. But here's how it's like basic CTE. There's my visual. I go down on the sight line. I'm going to be to the outside, but instead of a half a tip, I'm a half ball, flared out away from center, a half ball. Now, I step the cue ball, my bridge V is on that missile line, and then I pivot to center and whack it. I do consider half ball pivoting to be a very advanced form for applying CTE, just as disguised pivoting is. A second way of applying half ball pivoting is, just as I said for disguised pivoting, is to just become fully engaged with the gearing of the cue ball with the object ball. And it all starts from where? Right cue ball edge to object ball C. Let's don't forget why we're here doing half ball pivoting. We're doing half ball pivoting as foundational to right cue ball edge to object ball C. The parallax line, the sight line, the stepping, all of that stuff happens. But it's like you've transcended a bit, or a lot, beyond a lot of consciousness directed towards the lines, even though they're still there. You have to know they're there. But you're focusing on the gearing between the cue ball half for the inside and the half of the object ball, the outer half. You can focus on the rotational edge that is at the outer position here. So for half ball pivoting, I'm going to go down, cue ball to the inside, object ball to the outside. I'm going to tweak around with my bridge V to get it on the missile. All of my gearing looks correct. All of my gearing looks correct, and I can know that by looking at the sight point, SP15. I can look at the outer edge of the object ball. So, gear, 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 tweak my bridge V to be on the nissel, gear, gear, gear. The rotational ticks on the object ball are perfect. Pivot to center, and shoot. Tomorrow, we'll look at another 15, but we'll look at a 15 inside. I know this has been a little bit of a lengthy video, but think about it. I've taken you through 4 different methods for applying center to edge aiming. So I've given you a lot of information. In fact, what I just gave you through those 4 methods was 15 or 16 years of what's in my head. If you want to know everything that's in my head, it's in my book. 15 or 16 years of work in order to be able to explain to you in detail all the little intricacies. So I hope that you have enjoyed this. I will continue to solidify and develop these approaches, because I'm sure I left some things out that perhaps I will look back on the video and say, well, I wish I'd said that. Well, I may say it in the next video, or the next video, or the next video. So I can say with a little bit of pride today that I did this is a one-take video, but I'm so familiar with the material, it doesn't surprise me, but I'm always happy when I can do a one-take video, because I have other things I want to do today rather than just this. Thank you once again for your attention, your interest, and I want to also extend a great big thank you for your patience that you had in waiting for this Truth Series and for my book to be released. See you in video 9.